Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning in. I would love to hear where you are joining us from. It's always so fun to see in the chat and in the comments where people are tuning in from. So, just yesterday, the Fed met, and we have some information to go over tonight just pertaining to everything that they discussed. I'm super excited to talk to this or to go over this with you guys. Obviously, this directly dictates what interest rates are going to be doing, which directly dictates what our housing market is going to be doing. And not only that, but it also just pertains to inflation altogether. I don't know about you guys, but when I go to the grocery store, it's a little bit painful these days. When I go to the gas pump, it's a little bit painful. So, watching them talk yesterday and hearing their thoughts was very interesting to me. So I definitely want to go over all of that with you, kind of break it down and get your thoughts. I would love for you, if you watched it or if you have any thoughts, I would love for you to chime in and definitely, um, you know, tell me what you think of what they're doing there. Obviously it's mixed emotions and mixed thoughts, but it's always interesting to see. So would love to hear from you guys. Every Thursday, we meet here at 7 o'clock to discuss some of the hot topics of the real estate market. I try to be very specific to Georgia because obviously that's where I'm at. A lot of what you see on the news is going to be national news. And while that is great information to always have, it doesn't always translate the same because the Georgia market is going to be different than some of the other locations, obviously. And so that's what I try to do here every Thursday is just really go over the topics and make sure that you're abreast of what's going on specifically in the state of Georgia, and what's going on in our market so that you can be prepared whether you're looking to buy, sell, invest, any of those good things. We want to make sure that you're up to speed of what's going on. So let's just dive in because there's a lot to go over when it comes to this. So last month, actually, we weren't sure where things were going to go with the Fed, and they ended up not raising rates, which is a great thing. Um, then yesterday, we weren't really sure where things were going to go. And again, Powell held steady. So he did not do another increase, which is good. However, they did talk about that there will be another raise. We will raise them one more time. There will be another increase one more time before the end of the year. He would not say if it's only going to be one more, but they said that they do see one more coming. So with that being said, they were talking about the drivers of inflation, gas prices, housing, the energy index, and things like that. So it's really interesting. So he was talking about that spending is robust. I like what he said here. It's a good thing that the economy is strong. It's a good thing that the economy has been able to hold up under the tightening that we've done. It's a good thing that the labor market is strong. The only concern is it just means that if the economy comes in stronger than expected, that just means we will have to do more in terms of monetary policy to get back to 2%. So I don't know if you watched my video. Gosh, it's been a couple of months now, but I begged the question. They keep talking about getting to 2%. And is the Fed willing to force us into a recession in order to meet that number? How much do we have to endure before they're seeing the changes that they want? If they start to see the positive changes that they're looking for, but we're not yet quite to 2%, would they back off? Or are they dead set that 2% is their number and they are going to do whatever it takes to get to that number? And it really sounds like no matter what, they're getting to that number, even if it forces us to go into a recession. And it's interesting because while as an American citizen sitting here, I don't want to go into a recession by any means. However, if that is what it takes to get numbers back to where they need to be, because it's showing here, we're not, as the American people, we're not backing off. We're not stopping our spending habits, even though things are getting tighter. So therefore, in their eyes, it's not hurting bad enough. And so that's a very interesting factor on their end. So it says the Fed is still waiting for convincing evidence on inflation coming down. We want to see convincing evidence, really, that we have reached the appropriate level. We've seen progress and we welcome that. But, we need to see more progress before we would be willing to reach that conclusion. So, again, I feel like it goes back to that they're seeing that, okay, housing has slowed. We definitely are seeing a much different market right now than we have been seeing. Earlier this year, I think if you would have asked any realtor that was watching the market, we really expected things to go back to normal this year, earlier this year. And it continued. There was a little bit of a pause at the beginning of the year, but then things started to speed back up, and we were not seeing the multiple offers to the point of there were lines out the door, but we were still seeing multiple offers. We are still seeing multiple offers. And so that, I think, is really what he's talking about, is we're not back to where we were in 2019. We have not slowed to the point pre-pandemic, which is really where I think they're trying to get things. The American people are still spending. And that's, last week we talked about credit card spending. A lot of people are spending more on credit cards, and a lot of people made money over the last couple of years. And unfortunately, they're continuing to spend a lot of that money that they made over the last couple of years. So let's see what else. A soft landing is a primary objective, not a baseline expectation. So we've talked about this before. He says that it's a plausible outcome, but it isn't guaranteed, and he is not willing to give up on bringing down inflation to achieve it. So when he was asked specifically, is that your goal? He said that would be really nice, but he's not willing to take the soft landing in order to bring down inflation. He's going to get it down. That flat out answers our question of, is he willing to put us into a recession? Absolutely. If that's what it takes to get us to where we need to be with our spending, that's what he's doing. So going on, the Fed officials see faster economic growth. One of the interesting things that they were talking about that is not specifically about real estate, but it does, I feel like, kind of coincide with the housing industry, is they were talking about the job market, and that the job market is still very strong, and that his hope is that he will be able to continue to have a strong job market while also bringing down inflation. Unfortunately, a lot of times those don't go hand in hand. When you start to bring down inflation, you're starting to lose jobs at the same time, but that ultimately is not his goal. And so one of the things he was saying, if you watch when he was on yesterday at minute 435, he basically was saying, for the people that are already struggling, he understands, he and his colleagues are aware that essentials like food, housing, transportation, those people are struggling so much harder. And they are committed to bringing down inflation because of those people. Because while the rest of us are still spending, there is a very large group of people that this is absolutely crushing. And so that does coincide with housing, because we've all talked about there is no affordable housing right now. Even if you're renting, that's not an affordable option. I was actually just went to a ribbon cutting in a town over from me yesterday, and the apartments there are starting at $1,600 a month for a 1-bedroom. That's not affordable. So that's just something that's very interesting for me. Being here, living here, I've watched the growth over the years. And so it's something I want to kind of dive in to our specific market here. So if we look here, this is Georgia as a whole. Okay. So if you look here, homes sold, we're at 27.7%, but year over year. So looking at last year compared to this year, we are down 5.7% since last year. If you look at homes with price drops, that's actually started to go up, not much, 0.6, But we are starting to see that more. List to sales price. We were seeing consistently 100% or more. We're at 98.7. So that, I mean, that's a positive. Then if you look here, the US migration trends. Georgia is still one of the top. Obviously, Florida is probably the top. I think Orlando was one of the number one areas there. But it's just been interesting to watch this over the years. And then if you look at housing supply right here, the number of homes for sale, this is where it gets tough. Because if you look at the number of homes for sale, we're down 25.1%. So basically, there are 25% less homes on the market today than there were a year ago. But then if you're looking at pricing, it's not really slowing down, because if you look up, here we go, the median sales price, we're still up 4.8% from last year. So we're down 25% on available houses, but we're up 4.8% on pricing. That just continues to show you where the struggle is. The lack of inventory is what is making us struggle long term on the affordability factor. If there's no homes on the market, then buyers are still fighting over that one house that pops up in the neighborhood. If there were 3, 4, 5, even 10 houses in that neighborhood for sale, we would have more than enough houses for all of those buyers, and there would not be these over asking opportunities, because there's enough housing. But the problem is we're not seeing that. I saw an article the other day and it actually kind of made me giggle, but it said that baby boomers are hoarding houses. I don't know if I would say they're hoarding houses, but we're definitely seeing a trend where baby boomers are staying in their houses longer. And usually we're seeing a larger turnover for that. And that makes homes available, right? They're listing their properties. They're either downsizing, they're moving away to a different area, maybe retiring on, a smaller city where they're not having to go into work all the time. So they're making jobs that are in the suburbs or even in the city. They're making housing, they're making housing in those areas come available because they're willing to move further out. They want to get away from the hustle and bustle. They've been doing it their whole lives and they're done. But we're not seeing that as much because most of those people own their home. So I have some stats right here. There's 87 million homeowners across the US. Of that 87 million, 34 million or 39% own their homes outright. So if you owned your home outright currently, would you sell your home and then turn around and buy in an 8%, 7.5%, 8% market? The answer is most likely no, unless you're making enough on that sale that you're turning around and you're buying something in cash. That's really the only reason. The only people that we're seeing really put their home on the market right now are people that it's a necessity, right? They're getting a job relocation or they're getting married. There's something in their lives that is strongly pushing them to make that move. And so that's kind of what we're seeing time and time again. So if we look back over here, I want to share this with you guys. The number of homes sold is down 16.4%. And then the median days on market are at 30. So I'm going to pull this up on what I look at pretty much daily. Okay, this is FMLS. So this is going to cover all of the major cities that are in Atlanta, the metro Atlanta, everything around it. So this covers all of those areas. And so if you look at this trending line, right now, the sales price, average sales price, we're at $425,000. So you can see over the last year, over the last couple of years, how that graph, but let's make it even bigger. This is the last 10 years. So if we look at things back in 2010, the average sales price in Gwinnett County was $139,000. And then we dipped, obviously, during that 2008 crash. 2012 was actually our bottom line. And then we've just been trending up ever since. We did have a little bit of a dip here, and then we continued to rise back up. Same with days on market. You can kind of see, obviously, you have those trends because basically every January, February, December, January, it's always quiets down. But then here we had a massive, downfall here. because that was when the pandemic was. But if you look at the consistency here, it's typical that we have a 30 days on the market, and we had gone back to that. That is like a safe, good, balanced market. But we've gone all the way back down to 10 days on market. Uh, so it's definitely interesting to see the trends that are going on, within everything. Hey, Anthony. Glad you're tuning in. Let's see what you got. Given the higher rates, are you seeing potential buyers entering into ARMs to afford homes? That's a great question. So I was going to kind of go over what are we seeing? So obviously, with interest rates being paused, there is hope on the horizon for home buyers. There really is, because they were paused last month, they were paused this month, and we are starting to see some price reductions, more than I've seen before. Now, keep in mind that a lot of that is going to be in the higher price points. If you're in one of the lower price points, or you're looking in one of the lower price points, those properties are still going fairly quickly. We're seeing price reductions when you're getting to, 650, 700,000 and going higher. Where a typical home that was listed at, say, 1.5 million or higher, you could see those properties stay on the market for up to a year. That was a typical timeline of days on market for those properties. And now in 2020, 2021, 2022, we were seeing those fly off the shelves. It was like nothing we had ever seen. And now we're going back to that typical market. So it is definitely a different ballgame. The last 14 days is a different ballgame than we saw just a month ago. So there is hope on the horizon, because we're seeing, reductions. We're seeing nothing major, and we're seeing those interest rates kind of pause for a couple of months, which gives us hope. Now, do I think that we're going to start seeing reductions? Absolutely not. Do I think that we're going to see reductions in interest rates at the beginning of the year? No. He did mention that if they can get things under control, we could see one or possibly even two reductions next year. I don't think that we will see those until third or possibly even fourth quarter. So, Anthony, to go to your question, are we seeing people go into ARMs to afford homes? We have not been seeing a lot of people do that. We really haven't. There are ARM products in order to give people options. I know for a lot of people, they think, oh my gosh, 2008, 2007, basically 2006, 2007 red flags, which led to 2008. It's different. Please hear me when I say it's different. I know that people are freaking out thinking that we're going back into the same thing as 2008. It's not the same thing. I'm not saying we're not going to have a recession. What I am saying is that if we end up there, it will be because the Fed caused it by pushing things, and because people were still spending out of control on outside purchases. It's not going to be because of faulty lending, which is what transpired in 2006, 2007 to create 2008. With the ARMs, Anthony, let's just use you as an example. If you come in and you say you want to go into a 5-1 ARM where it's going to adjust eventually in 5 years, if they are looking at what the interest rate is today and what it could possibly be in 5 years, you have to qualify at that point. Even if they get you into an interest rate today that's 5.5%, you still have to qualify for that 8, 9, 10, whatever they think it could be. You have to qualify for that to make sure that if you hold on to that loan and you do not refinance, because the point of an ARM is to give you time. It literally is buying you time. They're getting you a reduction of the interest rate today so that hopefully in the next couple of years, interest rates have come down. You refinance during that time, or get your finances different. You're putting more money down. You're doing something so that in the next couple of years, you're refinancing that loan to then get into a stable loan, a locked rate that is a good rate for you, that is an affordable monthly payment, and that's where you will stay. Unfortunately, 2006, 2007, they did not make sure that people could afford those loans when they adjusted. People did not refinance. They waited. And then when those loans refinanced, or the rates came due and they were going up, to, the adjustable rate, people could no longer afford it. We were seeing a ton of people taking out HELOCs, home equity lines of credit. They were borrowing against their home to the point of not being able to sell it. If my home is worth $600,000 and I take out, let's say I owe only 300, but it's worth 600. Well, I could borrow against my home and then I could turn around and take out $200,000. What can I do with that money? Almost anything. I could buy a car. I could put a down payment on an investment property. There are a lot of smart ways to use your equity for you if you're smart about it. But a lot of people then did not pay attention to that and they were borrowing against the home. And then when prices came down, what happened? They were upside down. So if I have a home that's worth 600 today, I owe 300. I borrow 200. So now my loan is at 500. And then for whatever reason, we go into a recession tomorrow and my home price is now only at 450. Well, now I can't sell it. I owe $50,000. And that's what happened in 2008. And so we want to make sure that that doesn't happen. So Anthony, we're seeing people very, very sparingly get into an arm situation. Same thing with, we had discussions of, were we going to start seeing people buy down the rates? At first, that was kind of a hot topic. We were seeing, sellers kind of advertising that they could, or lenders, I'm sorry, advertising that they could buy down the rate, right? But that was just chasing what's been going on the last couple of years. Everybody is so hyped up on what's going on the last couple of years and the low interest rates. And oh my God, we're not seeing them anymore. But if you look at trends, we've never seen 2 and 3% interest rates. I took it all the way back to like the 50s. We've never seen 2 and 3% interest rates, and we most likely will never see those again. And so coming off of that, it was almost like a high for people. And so lenders were kind of selling the thought of, well, we can buy down the rate. Well, what's the point of buying down the rate if we do start to see reductions next year and I can just refinance? The interest that you paid between today and next year is going to be minimal compared to a lender spending $20,000 or $30,000 to buy down the rate, which is usually what it costs. $20,000 or $30,000 worth of interest, you would have to stay in that home for years. And so financially, it's a bad move to buy down the rate. You're wasting money, because what happens if you sell that home in a couple of years? You do get that relocation, or something happens. You literally left $20,000 or $30,000 on the table because you bought down a rate and you didn't stay in that home long enough to recuperate the money that lender spent. Or a seller, if they were going to, right now, if we're negotiating and you could have $20,000 off the price, you could have $20,000 towards closing cost, which is something that you have to come out of pocket for, or you could have $20,000 towards buying down the rate. I'm going to tell you all day long, option C is off the table. I would take option A or option B, because those are the ones that are going to get you the money back to you. How do you decide between those two options? Well, if you see yourself staying in this home, you are having kids right now, you're in the school district that you love, you see yourself definitely being here for those kids to get through elementary school, middle school, high school. I mean, you're looking at now a 13-year, stint in this home. Definitely look at possibly taking the money off of the house, because ultimately that's going to be a long-term investment. If you see yourself not staying here that long, maybe this is a stepping stone house the next 5 years or less, I would take that money toward your down payment, or toward your closing costs, I should say, because that's leaving money in your pocket. It's helping you not have to come to the table with as much at closing, and you're able to keep some of that money in your pocket, in your bank account. So if anything comes up, because a lot of first-time home buyers, we're not seeing them prepared for home ownership. Buying the home is just the first step. Anybody that owns a home, tell me in the comments, what happens when you buy a home? You need to paint it. You need to keep up the maintenance. The AC breaks. You got to do the AC maintenance. Then the fall comes, you need to make sure that the AC is working and that the heat is now working. There is maintenance that comes with that house. Maybe you didn't realize how big your yard is and you need to hire a landscaping company. There are things that are consistently overlooked when people are buying their first home. And so I really think talking with other people and making sure that you have saved for those things is a huge, huge important factor. So, in terms of what it looks like buying in today's market, I want everybody to be prepared because it has changed. It's changed, like I said, just in the last 14 days. We are not seeing huge price reductions in the lower market. So $500,000 or less, we are not seeing huge price reductions. We are not seeing closing costs back on the table. There was a time where when a buyer was writing a contract, they were asking the seller to pay the closing costs, and sellers were doing that as an incentive to help buyers get into the home. We're not seeing that. We are seeing steady offers. We are seeing a little bit longer days on market. So that's something to, think of. That doesn't mean that if a home has been on the market for 30 days, it's a bad house. I will say one of the biggest changes from 2019 and before compared to now, a lot of times when I worked with first-time home buyers or even second, home buyers, they were more willing to put in sweat equity compared to now. People used to be able to look past a bad paint color in your home. They used to look past the gardening that needs to be done or the lawn that hasn't been kept or the fact that maybe you have kids and like the walls are dirty. I know if you walk through my house right now, good, help us. There's some dirty walls, there's fingerprints. But people these days, buyers these days, are not as willing to overlook those small items. So if you're looking at listing your home, making sure that it is in pristine condition is so important. And I'm not talking about spending thousands and thousands of dollars. I am talking about getting out a wet wipe and wiping down the walls. I'm talking about getting a fresh coat of paint throughout. Get it just a neutral gray color and paint the entire house. Touch up the little things. Make sure that the baseboards are clean because we have a different buyer than we had a couple of years ago. We have different first-time home buyers than we had a couple of years ago. The first-time home buyers of today are working. They're working long hours. Sometimes they're even working from home still, and they are not willing to take the time and put in the effort because they just don't have the time to put in. So they want to make sure that they're buying a home that is ready to go. It doesn't have to be cream of the crop, but it does have to be move-in ready where they're not having to move in and start projects right away. They want to be able to live in it and work on projects that they want to work on, not that they have to work on. So make sure that you keep that information in mind. If there's any questions that you guys have, always feel free to reach out to me. You can reach me at ashley@myhaventeam.com or shoot me a text. I love when I get to talk to you guys. That's probably my favorite time. Anthony, you and I will definitely be connecting. I appreciate you guys tuning in, and I can't wait to see you next week.